learn from my old ways of doing things new. I hate what I love, but I'm trying, man, it's true. I'm fighting every day in my mind through and through, please.
I am John Legacy J, and you are tuned to The Breaking Point. Now, today we're going to talk about a bad word, y'all. We're going to talk about a bad word. It can get you in trouble in relationships. It can get you in trouble online. It can get you in trouble almost anywhere, depending on the individual and what type of environment you are in. That A word that we're going to talk about today will cause some arguments. It can be very controversial. This word, this A word, right? And I know some of y'all mind is in the gutter and you think I'm talking about a different A word. No, I'm not thinking about that word. I'm not talking about that word. We're talking about a different word. And that word is, drum roll please, accountability. Accountability. Something that our society lacks a lot of. Now, before we start talking about how society lacks it and how it is very important, let's define what it is, because everyone nowadays has their own definition of everything, and no one is really on the same page because everyone has their own definition. Everyone is thinking differently about things differently, right? I mean, like I could say accountability, and to me, it could mean X, Y, and Z, and then to another person, it could mean B, C, and D. So let's go to the dictionary and get the definition, right? So, coming right from the dictionary, accountability, noun, the quality or state of being accountable, especially an obligation or willingness to accept responsibility or to account for one's actions. Excuse me. Let me read that last part again. The willingness to accept responsibility or to account for one's actions. See, today everybody wants to live like they in the wild, wild west. You can say whatever you want, do whatever you want, and there is no responsibility taken on that person's side for their actions. We can just say, do, treat people however we want to treat them, and it's okay because we feel justified on how we feel, right? And I can only think about all the atrocities in the world, or not all of them, but a lot of atrocities that happen in the world on a day to day, like things that we see on the news, people crashing out because of how they feel. And if that's not checked, if we don't check ourselves and say, even though I feel this way, I need to reflect back and think about, was that the right thing to do? Then we'll just keep doing it. In relationships, it's detrimental because you have one individual who just thinks, because I feel this way, or because I feel this way, I can say and do whatever I want and you should be okay with it. Or it could be even in politics, like, because people make mistakes, y'all. And they can make mistakes in politics, they can make mistakes in leadership, they can make mistakes in relationships, but the respect comes and the honor comes when someone is man or woman enough to say, I made this mistake and I'm sorry, and you make ways to not do it again. A sincere apology and holding yourself accountable for your actions and where you went wrong, because we can't control everybody else, right? When it comes to accountability, we can't control what that person does or what that person does, but we can take responsibility for our role in the scenario, right? It might not have been all your fault, but I can guarantee you it's something that you might have done that contributed to it, where you could lead by example. And some people say, well, I always got to be the bigger person. Why this, why that? Well, if not you, then who? You just gonna keep being petty and nobody's gonna hold each other accountable? Our society is messed up right now because of a lack of accountability. Sometimes we as men don't hold other men accountable because we fear that the relationship is gonna be strained if we just tell them, like, and we'll be like, man, it's messed up what he doing, but they ain't none of my business. But how is an individual gonna get better? And a lot of times we perceive that the individual is gonna be defensive and they're gonna shut you out. But at the end of the day, a lot of times we don't truly know how someone is going to take the information. And if they do decide to be upset about it, you did your part. You did your part and you said what you had to say. I'm not saying say it like harsh or just being like downright just this how I am, I'm real. You got to find ways. Like you have to use wisdom on how we talk to people for them to get it, right? For them to get what the message is, really. I mean, and I say men because I'm a man, but women too. Y'all got to hold each other accountable too for some of the actions. Like you be hearing stuff your girlfriend be saying and it ain't right. But you like, well, I just gotta, I just gotta let her vent and let her have it, let her just spill her heart out. That's fine. But when she's done with all of that, you need to let her know too. Like we don't get better as a society if we just let people just be the worst version of themselves without trying to hold them accountable to be better. I mean, a lot of childhood, uh, let's just say traits or behavior happens because parents weren't holding their kids accountable because the parents were too busy trying to do what they wanted to do. They weren't trying to be a parent. They were still trying to just be outside and have fun, especially young parents, So, and it's hard. I've seen people on the other end of it where they're trying to hold themselves responsible because they didn't have the the support growing up from their parents and that thing. Um, and I see that, and that's applauded because if you got to do all that work yourself and you didn't have people to help you in that area, man, my hat's off to you. At least you trying. But some people in this world, they ain't trying at all. They don't want to be told they wrong. And then they'll go out of their way of telling their side of the story, leaving out all the wrong they did just so they can get people on their side. Because having people on their side is more important than taking responsibility for what they did. And you will never grow that way. And opportunities in life you'll always get to this place where you're almost got it. You're almost there, but it's that one thing in your character that holds you up from being able to get everything that God really has for you. So we have to find ways to hold each other accountable and hold ourselves accountable is the main thing. And the first thing is not beating up on yourself. Most people don't hold themselves accountable because they're already beating up on themselves and they have low self-esteem. They do. They already think I'm terrible. I'm a horrible person. So the minute you say, hey, you did this, they're defensive. Their shields are all up. They're ready to just go all in and be like, nah, I'm already beating myself up. You ever have a family member that you could make fun of and you could beat up, but bet not nobody else do it? That's how it is with some of these people, man. With some people. And it's like, I can beat up on myself, but you better not do it. And the thing is, a lot of times, and I'm talking to those who are very sensitive about this. A lot of times, let me talk to you. Let me move in a little bit. A lot of times, people are not beating up on you. People are not trying to punch down on you. People are not trying to act like they're more superior than you. A lot of times, it's just the way that things are filtered in our minds. Because if you're used to being in like a psychologically abusive relationship, whether it be your parents or a significant other, it shapes how you view everything else in life and how you filter everything that you hear in life if you don't get healed from that. So opportunities that are presented to you for people who actually love you to help sharpen you and to make you better and to hold you accountable for things that you've done. You perceive it as an attack, and it's not an attack. People generally want to see you better a lot of times. And I'm not saying that's all the time because, sometimes people are just jerks and they just want to beat down on people like and really because it makes makes them feel better about themselves. But a lot of times it's not that. It's not that. And something that we as a people have to realize is that sometimes we see the world based on the world that we lived in. And you might be out of that world now. You might not be in that negative world where you're getting verbally abused all the time. You're in a new space where people aren't coming with that same type of intention to tear you down and hurt you. But because that's what you've gone through and you haven't really healed from that, that's how you see the world. As if people aren't giving constructive criticism, they're just giving criticism. And constructive criticism can help us deconstruct the thing that is holding us back and construct new character and new traits to take us to where we really need to be. So those are some things that I would suggest. And I'm not saying this like I'm like you're lesser because I'm saying this. Like therapy, I go to therapy, man. I go. I mean, there's some things that a therapist can do that friends can't do. So I'm not saying this in a way as there's something wrong with you, but if I mean there might be something wrong, and there's nothing wrong with that because I got things I go through myself. But you're not going to change the way that you deal with this unless you get some help and you get people to help you to see from a different perspective, right? Because sometimes we tend, when it comes to friends, and this is why I say, you know, therapy is better than just talking to friends a lot of times, because sometimes we call the people who we know are going to side with us. We deal with like-minded people. And sometimes we deal with people who we know are going to make us feel good because we choose our friends. Our friends don't choose us. We choose them, and we choose them for reasons. And the reason you might have chose that friend could be because they treat you differently and they don't say things that challenge you. But all of us need challenging. All of us need challenging. We all need to be checked at times. We all need to be checked at times if we want to be better, if we want to live a better life, if we want to have better relationships. We have to embrace the A word, which is accountability. We have to be responsible for our actions. And we got to start holding people accountable for their actions, not just people in our life, but leaders. Um, I didn't think I was going to go here today, but when it comes to like communities, and I'll speak to this one because I'm a part of it, church communities, man, we got to hold leaders accountable. We can't just say, oh, well, we're just going to eat the meat and spit out the bones. Or, yeah, we know they do that, but, we still got to cover them. Oh, love covers a multitude of sins. Like, no, that's not what that meant. We talked about Jesus dying covered a multitude of sins, right? And not only Jesus dying for his love for us, but our love that we have, because what are the two commandments? Love God, I'm paraphrasing it, and love your neighbor as yourself. And when you love your neighbor, it covers a multitude of sins. So we don't have to worry about stealing. We don't have to worry about the 10 commandments, just following those commandments, because in love, you don't do those things. So I hate when I hear people say, well, love covers a multitude of sins. So we just love. We're not supposed to talk about what they did. We're supposed to cover them. And then what happens? The media uncovers them, and the stuff that should have happened, the accountability that we should have had towards we should have been holding each other accountable in the church. It gets out there in the public eye because we didn't do it when we had our chance. So now the world's uncovering it because we didn't do it. We didn't hold them accountable. So now the world's going to do it. So what's done in the dark is going to come to the light. But a lot of times people don't want to do it because of risking positions and opportunities and things like that. And we got to get past that, because church isn't about business. It's not about ego. It's not about feeling important, right? Only person that's important when it comes to ministry is God, and it's his ministry, and these are his people. And we need to prioritize that over any title, position, money, and opportunity. That's what needs to be prioritized in the church. That's my audience right now. I'm speaking to is those in the church. People doing wrong, and we can't sit them down because they good at this, or we can't talk to them and tell them this because then who gon' they bring in a good crowd. So what? So what? You and when I say accountability, I don't mean like put them on blast. I mean like I'm just saying, like, things, we have to start holding people responsible for their actions. We have to, especially in the church, because if we don't do it, then the world will. And then that type of exposure is even worse, because now it has all of us as a church body looking bad. It got all of us looking bad now. Because when the world sees us, they don't see just that one person, even though we know that person is like a little different. We know that person doesn't represent us all the way. But instead of us handling it inside, now the world is doing it, and now they grouping all of us up with that. That's why accountability is important in the church. Accountability in our government is important because, man, we pay tax dollars. We elect these people. And when they say they're gonna do something for us, we need to hold them accountable for it. I don't care what party they are, what side of the aisle you on. I'm not on either. I'm an independent thinker. I'm independent when it comes to all this stuff. I observe from the outside and look at, okay, that ain't right on the left, that ain't right on the right. Okay, well, you know, so I'm not married to either side. But I will say, if we hired, because that's what we do when we do elections, when we hire someone for the job, if it were any other job, if they worked at McDonald's, if they worked at wherever, and they weren't performing well, we would hold them accountable. We would hold them responsible for their performance. And we need to start doing that instead of looking at parties and saying, no, I need to defend my party, so I'm not going to go ahead and say anything bad about them. Forget all that. We hired this person for a job, and they need to be held accountable if they're not doing the job correctly. If they flip the script on us, no, we need to do something about that. And it's important that we're not blinded by politics, because at the end of the day, if you've been sucked into that, they got you. They got you. Because now they can pretty much do whatever they want, and because they're your party, you're going to go ahead and roll with it. Which is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. We need to demand more from the people that we're paying and supporting, and putting our I don't want to say our trust, because I really don't trust them, but some people do. If you putting your trust in them, you putting you giving them your vote, you campaigning for them, you helping, wearing the t-shirts and stickers and all that type of stuff, they better do something for you other than just, well, my party got in. That ain't enough. It's not enough, especially for people in my community. I'll just say it because some people don't want to say it, but in the Black community, like, we have to be holding these people accountable. I don't care what party they in. If they're not doing good by us, and they say they were, if they're not putting in, setting up policies that can help benefit those of us who are struggling in some places, or where we're not being prioritized, then we need to talk about it. Yeah, you might be doing good, but as believers, we're supposed to be looking out for our brothers and sisters too. Like, I don't benefit from government aid and stuff. I don't at all. I never had it, never qualified for it. Thank God. Even when at my low, I guess I wasn't low enough, but I mean, I thought I was when I first got married, had my kid. We like, man, maybe we can get some help. And they was like, nah, you make too much. I'm like, really? Because I got more month than money, but okay, But even with that, like, I don't look at it and be like, nah, nobody deserves any help. And I know that there's some people who abuse the help, but I know there's people who legitimately need it. They in situations. So I'm not gonna just act like everything's good for us as a community because I'm okay and my brother ain't okay or my sister ain't okay. But that's not what this was about. I'm just talking about accountability in general. So we talked about the church, we talked about individuals, we touched on politics a little bit. Don't want to stay there too long. Relationships. I mean, it's tough. I get it. Sometimes people don't want to be told that they've done something wrong or you hurt somebody's feelings, but how can you have a healthy relationship when you can't be honest and open about something that has bothered you with someone's behavior or their character, how they treat you, how they talk to you. It's important that we have those conversations, and as the person on the receiving end, that you accept the critique, so to say, so that the relationship can be better, and own it. It's okay. We don't know everything. No one is perfect. Sometimes it's just okay to own it and just say, I'll do better. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with just saying sometimes, I'm sorry, I'll do better? Or I didn't mean it that way. And sometimes, like, in conversations, because I know when I talk to my wife sometimes and I ask her, like, well, when did I do that? Sometimes people can see that as like, oh, I'm being defensive or someone's being defensive. Sometimes they just don't know. Like, okay, let them know and let them own it. But at least let them draw it back to their memory so they know. Because sometimes you can ask a question like that and people see, there you go. It's like, no, it's not that. I wanna, I wanna replay the moment so I can own it. So I can understand what I did. Like, oh dang, yeah, I remember that now. So it's important that we hold ourselves accountable. We hold other people accountable so that we as a society, we as a people can be better. I could go longer, but I'm not. Because I think we get the point today. But what I want you all to do is just start embracing that A word, accountability, not the other one, the A word of accountability, so that we could all be better. This is John Legacy J. If this video helped you, or you think it might help somebody else, make sure you like, subscribe, share. And I'll be back again with more content, man. We're going to keep it going because we got to get to a breaking point where we're just like, we want better. And holding ourselves accountable is how we get there. One way. All right. Later.